Yo, 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 this is John Bob Show, here for another episode, and today what I want to share with you is how I analyze investment properties for cash flow. What it really comes down to at the end of the day is your cash on cash ROI. That's got to be the most important thing when you're looking at your properties. Your cash on cash ROI is going to be however much you make annually from the property, that's cash flow after all your expenses, everything is paid, divided by your down payment on the property, and that gives you your cash on cash ROI. So here I have property A and I have property B, and then at the top here is the purchase price. So for property A, these are real properties on the MLS for sale right now. So the purchase price for property A is $158,900. Purchase price for property B is $150,000. You're going to want to know how much money you can actually get from these properties. So that's when you're going to have to do some research. You have to go on either the MLS or have your agent go on the MLS and find out what the rent is in that area. A great website that I use a lot is called Hot Pads, because I can put in the address of the property I'm looking at and I can find similar properties right next to it, and I can see how many times a property has been viewed. So that's very interesting, because I could look at one property listed for $1,200 and then I could be looking at another one listed for $1,400 in the same area, and I could see that the one at $1,200 was viewed 35 times this week, and then I could look at the one at $1,400 and see that it was only viewed twice this week. So now you have a better understanding of what the market asks for in that area, and if you're in the $1,200 range, you're gonna have way more potential tenants than you would at the $1,400 range. So Hot Pads is a great website. Another one is of course the MLS. See what actual properties in that area are actually renting for. What's really important when you find what your target rent is for said property, it's very important that you come up with two numbers. You come up with one that's pretty accurate to what you think you would actually get, and then you want to come up with another number that's lowballing what you think you would get in that market. The low number is the number that if I put out my for rent sign and I tell people it's this price, I know I'm going to get it rented within a week. Okay, that's going to be your low ball number. So you won't start at that number. You're going to start at what you think you'll get for the property, and then if you have to, you can down trace to your low number. So for property A, I came up with a rent potential of $1,300 on the low side and $1,400 of what I could probably get. And then property B, I came up with $1,225 and $1,350. So you're going to do your math with the low side and the high side. So you always want two answers. You want one that is what you definitely could get 100%, and then the other one is what you think the market will give you. And now it's time to go into the expenses. And I like to break the expenses down to the month. That way I can find out how much actual cash I'm making every month, and then from there I multiply that by 12 divided by the down payment, and you get your cash on cash ROI. So let's start. We have the taxes. This is the taxes for the last year on these properties. So 2,236, 2303. I divided that by 12, get 187 a month, and I get 192 a month. Next thing is the insurance. These are condos, $70 a month, $70 a month. That's actually probably much more on the high side. It's probably going to be around $40 to $50 a month, but it's always important that you're conservative on your estimates. Everything should be on the what if side of the worst case scenario. That's why you have the rent potential. You have two numbers. You don't just say, oh, my rent potential is $1,350. No, you say your rent potential is $1,300 to $1,400. HOA, I find that out on the MLS. You could also ask your agent what the HOA is. $212 for property A, $199 for property B. Property management. Some people don't include this because they are their own property managers. I understand that. But say even if you are your own property manager, you should still add this into the equation, because later on down the road, you never know if you might be expanding and it might not be worth your time to actually be the property manager. It might be more important for you to put that off onto someone else. So I always do 10% of the rent, of the monthly rent for the property management fee. You're paying more than 10% then you're probably paying too much. So I just calculate this in, even if I'm my own property manager for said property. And if you're doing 10% of the rent, then that means you're gonna get two numbers, because you're gonna do it from the low end and you're gonna do it from the accurate end. So 130 to 140, 1300, 1400, and 123 to 135, 1225, 1350. Mortgage, your principal and interest, okay? Because we already calculated the insurance, we already calculated the taxes. Principal interest, this is off a 30-year mortgage. I got $551 a month. And also right here, I wrote down the equity. Invest $50,000. Doesn't matter what we're not saying, all right, we're gonna put 30% down. We're saying you can come at it that way, or you can come at it as I'm gonna invest $50,000. So if the property is a little more, then my equity is gonna be a little less, of course. We started with our down payment, it's gonna be $50,000. So when you look at the mortgage here, it comes out to 31% equity. And on property B, you're gonna have a little more equity because the purchase price is a little lower, 150 versus 158.9. So on property B, your mortgage is gonna be 506, and your equity is gonna be 33%. You could pay the utilities. If that's the way you're gonna do it, then add in the utility bill. And then at the end, you take all your expenses. Well, you take your rent potential, subtract all your expenses, and you get your cash flow. Again, two numbers, your low end and then your accurate end. So 150 to 240 a month, 135 to 248 a month. And now you know your monthly income, cash in your hand that you're gonna get after everything is paid for, your mortgage, your insurance, your taxes, HOA, your property management, all of that. And you take your cash flow, multiply that by 12, divide it by your down payment, and then you get your cash on cash ROI. And that came to 3.6 to 5.76%. The property B came to 3.24 to 5.95%. Now those numbers may seem low, so then you might not look at these properties. You might go look in a different market. Maybe you can negotiate the purchase price to be less. If the purchase price is less, then your mortgage is going to be lower. If your mortgage is lower, then you have more monthly cash flow, and that's going to change all the numbers. So what's really interesting is that you can change any number, and it'll change your cash on cash ROI towards the end. You might take out the property management because you're your own property manager. So then that's another 130, 140 in your pocket. It's another 123, 135. That's going to pretty much double your cash flow, cash on cash ROI, roughly. So this is how I analyze properties. I hope you find it useful, and also talk about other things when it comes to analyzing property. These are just the numbers. One thing I did forget to include though is the vacancy. Some people do 10%, some people do 1 month's rent, however you want to do it. So, you might trade off, you might take a property with a lower cash flow, cash on cash ROI, because it's in a better area maybe. There's different trade-offs that you got to look at, and you got to make the decision. But I want to leave you with the knowledge of how to break down a property by the numbers to find out the actual cash flow that you're going to be getting from said property. Thank you for watching. This is the John Bob Show. I'm John Bob. Stay tuned for more.